Much has been said about humanity's extraordinary resilience in hostile environments, and their profound capacity for compassion that bridges species. Yet, I believe their greatest gift remains less celebrated. This gift, which transcends language and touches every being briefly, is music. While the Rati have crafted melodies for millennia and the Marana boast their battle anthems and oral traditions, humanity has harnessed their innate predatory instincts to create musical compositions that defy description. Their music is a sublime marvel, a universal language that resonates deeply with all who encounter it. I remember the day of my first exposure to this beast. It was on the planet Versum 3, and as part of their introduction to the galactic community, humanity was asked to showcase their best side to the various member races of the Standing Council. With wounds still being somewhat fresh over the brief but surprisingly bloodless war only a century before this event, humanity took the initiative to send high-ranked members of their own people to each planet, similar to how one would give a hostage to show there's no deceit over the request for the races to join them on Versum 3. What initially surprised me was the vast number of shuttles and fleet carriers that humanity fielded as transport to the planet, all controlled by what they call a mothership, so that no incidents occurred between vessels. It appeared like humanity wanted as many people to be involved as they could get, and still not have a fight break out. For my part, the trip was long and uneventful, though with plenty of conversation amongst my people over this highly unusual gathering. On arrival, we were greeted with a spectacle. Somehow humanity had managed to transform a world where there were no sentient races and large swathes of open plain into something resembling a metropolis, full of buildings and citizens everywhere, in less than 2 galactic standard months. There was no time to observe the sights though, as a human dressed in a formal-appearing uniform arrived and politely requested that the occupants of our particular craft follow him, and he made that request in near-flawless galactic trade speech no less. As we walked, the male gave a brief description of the most common buildings people were using, including something called a supermarket, where foodstuffs were being housed and purchased. In what seemed like a too short amount of time, we arrived at a building called a hotel, where we were each assigned quarters as befit our relative rank, but our guides stressed that other races had much the same treatment, an announcement that was seemingly designed to prevent species arguing amongst one another. We were then requested to watch our personal communicators as the laws of the area were repeated quite regularly and the security forces would not discriminate should those laws be broken. To my delight, I found that most of the laws were merely galactic standard laws, but with a few specific ones added in. Laws such as not leaving any rubbish about to preserve the ecosystem were in high abundance. After many such hours in our quarters, a knock at our doors signaled that our presence was requested in our designated meeting area, the location of which was flashed across our personal communicators. We dutifully followed our guide to our area, where we boarded another shuttle to go to another area the humans had prepared. I had thought I had seen a marvel with our first destination, but I was not prepared for what awaited me. As we sat in shock, our pilot informed us that these buildings were cathedrals, and that they were capable of holding at least 10,000 people each, but despite repeated questioning, she wouldn't reveal their purpose, instead repeating that we would find out soon enough. As before, on touchdown we were shown to our designated areas and instructed to be patient, as the event would begin soon. Evidently other races had arrived before us, but with the humans around we were silently assured that this was their arena, and they would not like others to disrupt whatever it was that was going to happen. It was more of a sensation that made me look at the raised platform in the center, and I saw humans walk out from under the platform, up the stairs on the side and seat themselves in chairs arranged in some chaotic pattern. It seemed to take only a moment for all the seats to fill, each person with some kind of thing in their hands. At that moment, I confess I feared that we were to all die in some kind of sick ceremony, and the cacophony that began made more than a few of my peers quake in terror, eyes wide at the noise. Thankfully it did not last long, as yet another human appeared, this time rising up from the center of the platform. Without audible words, the people on the platform quietened down, before a single note echoed throughout the cathedral, blown by someone with an impossible breath. The room went as silent as death itself, all eyes on this one person who stood above all others. Friends, it's here that words will fail me, for what I heard that day has changed me, and likely every other member of the masses gathered that day. I do ask you bear with me as I try to describe this event. The sounds that followed that single note wove a story of human emotions, but told in a way that everyone present understood what they were being told. The humans wove sounds from different places, different feelings, into one continuously magical experience. Our kind rarely feels strong emotion unless we're with our partners, but in that cathedral, we all felt joy, sorrow, loss, the feeling of being found and feeling peace, but most of all, we felt humanity's capacity for love, both of each other when they actually managed to put aside their squabbles, and their love for exploring unknown places. I am not ashamed to admit that the feelings of that music changed me, and made me appreciate the good in those gifted humans on the stage. It was at about this time that I remembered that our cathedral was not the only one, but one amongst hundreds. I managed to get out of my seat and had made my way to the entrance when a human stopped me. She spoke with a quiet voice, simply asking where I was going to, before she called over another human to take her place as she escorted me around to a smaller room. I explained that I wished to go outside and think a moment, and she agreed to escort me, reminding me that no one will be allowed to travel without a guide, as human environments may be dangerous to others. I remember walking with the female human for some time, occasionally looking up at the sky and keeping my thoughts to myself. For the female, I'm certain that this was a dull thing to be doing compared to the magic the other humans were weaving inside, but she seemed to not mind at all. After what seemed like a long time, she finally spoke to me and said that she knew why I was outside, because she had seen this reaction before with others. She explained that even her own species sometimes find the music to be powerful enough to drive them to tears, and so understood the effect it was having on me. Feeling a little braver than I felt, I requested if there were such a place that one can hear multiple cathedrals at the same time, to which my guide said there was one a short distance away, yet still in public space and not restricted. We walked for a short distance to a nearby hillock, where my eyes saw multiple cathedrals at once. I had thought that the distance would make it easier for listening, but I was wrong once again. Although I knew they were making the same music, each one was ever so slightly different, and together it sounded like the buildings themselves were singing in their soft voices. All too soon, the concert ended. I had managed to find what it was called, and we were escorted back to our quarters for a rest period prior to our flight back to our world. Our rest was solemn because we felt as though we had just been in a wild ride, experienced emotions so intense that we barely recognized them, and we were all exhausted from the experience. Our flight home was much the same as the flight out, with conversation around the spectacle we witnessed, and how it was real magic to make everyone feel the same, no matter what. I've often thought about that night on Versum 3, and how humanity had managed to find a universal language amongst so many different species while giving those species just a taste of the depth of the power of those same emotions. Since that night, I've remained in contact with the female that was my guide that night, and she has personally invited me to numerous other concerts and performances of human music, each one leaving me in awe at the depth and talent. It was only in passing that my final question was answered about Versum 3. How did humanity construct a metropolis suitable for disparate species in an impossible time frame? My friend told me that they used a form of hard light, but instead of using it for warfare, they used it for civilian purposes. This revelation stunned me as I'd never seen such a convincing projection. Indeed, the only real objects present were the guests, the sustenance, and of course, the humans and their instruments. Everything else was a hologram, I'm told the word is. Since that day, we've all heard of how far humanity has come with their hard holographic technology, and how they're able to create objects so real that you can no longer tell fact from fiction. I'm also sure that anyone reading this knows just how far humanity has gone in their practice of medicine, blending their technology into prosthesis technology so real that even the being with the prosthesis would swear that the limb was not damaged at all. But what is evident to me is that humanity had already mastered the art of music, and this shows in the numerous activities they perform as they hum away to their favorite piece.